I know it's 4:03. We're waiting for Tim to get back up here. He had to go grab something from his office, so appreciate your patience. All right, let's kick off the November 17th review board meeting. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do we have any motions or notes?
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. You have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from last month, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. First order of business is Alta North Maple. The presenters want to come up and state your name, who you're with. And we'll go from there. Tim, you want to discuss your comments, town comments first?
Yeah, one moment, sorry, getting back into positioning. So this is a request for preliminary approval for a proposed new 347 unit multifamily development on approximately 18.33 acres. The property is zoned GB, general business. It's located on the east side of North Maple Street, south of the old dairy intersection. Right here where the blue box is. The site conceptually meets requirements. The proposal includes 347 units and 5 buildings. An amenity center has been incorporated into building 2, 8 garage buildings, and 559 parking spaces. For 1.61 spaces per unit. Amenities include a pool, walking trails, and connections to North Maple, multi-use path, and dog park. The overall plan is showing a gap in the proposed North Maple Street path. This path should be shown across the entire North Maple Street frontage. A tree removal permit with a list of grand trees to be removed and tree protection board approval is required. The landscape plans should meet the planting size requirements of section 8.7.1 of the UDO. Required 10% open space requirement should be highlighted on one sheet of the plan set. The architectural images generally meet the UDO requirements and include a mix of materials. 2 color schemes have been provided. So we will go there. Does that work for you guys to start? And I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Dennis Jordan with Wood Partners. We are here today for preliminary approval for this 18-acre site. We've actually been under contract on it since November of last year. I think you will notice since the last time we were here, we further advanced our design and brought something back that's a little bit more refined, but we're very happy with it and think the site is better organized and lays out and presents a lot better. I'll probably hand it over to the experts here, Aaron Schmidt with Seaman Whiteside and Associates, and our architect, Glenn, who is with 2PA.
Well, thank y'all. My name is Aaron Schmidt with Seaman Whiteside. So we came with this layout for our conceptual approval, and we didn't get many criticisms on the site layout. But I do want to go over some of the small site changes that we've made. The last time that we were here, we had a little bit larger of a green space in the bottom right-hand corner. That was because we were utilizing or thinking of utilizing underground detention at the time. We've actually now turned it back over and we were able to make it work with just a regular pond. So we have fit the pond kind of to the property lines in that corner and then also have kind of a small green space. Programmatically speaking, we will be looking into these kind of smaller pockets in green space to create pocket parks and stuff like that as we move forward. One of the other changes that you'll find, nothing is large as far as change goes, but in building 2, like Tim had said, we went ahead and it was 3 buildings that are now just kind of incorporated into one. Those 3 buildings were all the same height at the time. There was a separation of 20 feet or so, maybe 15 between those 3 buildings. And so we've just compacted them into just one building to make this shape that you see here. Within building 2, the amenity center is in there and then it'll connect directly to the pool that you see. As far as the pool addressing North Maple, we are actually speaking with the owner to figure out ways to have correct plantings, maybe some screenings, whether that's walls or smaller structures of some sort to kind of screen between North Maple and the pool. There's approximately 75 feet from the pool deck to the right of way. So we feel that with plantings and whatever else, we'll be able to create a nice space in that area. Other than that, the site plan is more or less the same that y'all saw last time. It incorporates the 5 buildings, what was once 6, and then the garages in the rear, and then the 3 ponds that you see on the site. To just address the comment that was made regarding the sidewalks along North Maple, in our civil plans, there is what is existing line work for sidewalk along North Maple. We are tying new sidewalk into that, so it didn't get hatched the way that the proposed sidewalk did. So it's there, it just doesn't look that way. So we'll address it on the next set of plans so that it's very clear what is and what isn't there. You can see it though in this rendering nicely as far as what it'll look like. We kind of want to create a pocket park type of area along North Maple so that as people walk through, they can kind of enjoy the frontage along North Maple rather than fearing for cars zooming past them. So with that, that is really the largest of changes. One thing that I do want to bring up is if we could go to the site plan, that's probably the best place to show it. There's a 30-foot buffer along the property lines, and we also have a ditch that runs through the property. So when we are looking at the skinny pond, there is a drainage easement that sits on the existing ditch that kind of runs through our property. And then off of that, we have also put on a 30-foot buffer per the UDO. So we're kind of buffering a buffer in a way because of the easement that is on that ditch. We were wondering if we could get a reduction in that buffer to create more room for plantings, also maintenance around that pond, just to create a little bit more room while still understanding that we need to be mindful of our neighbors. But in this case, we have that room due to the ditch that's there and the existing trees that are there as well. So I know that's the purview of this board. So I'd just like to ask that you consider it. And then as we move into our motions, we can address what the board thinks there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Glenn. He'll present on the architectural side of things, and we'll move on from there.
Hey, my name's Glenn Allison. I'm with Pool and Pool Architects. You're asking, like they said, for preliminary approval. Last time we were here, I think we had 3 minor comments on what we submitted for conceptual. The parapets needed a little bit of attention, or too simple. Let's see. I think the breaking up of the buildings. And then I think we had a color comment. So first slide in my slides are just kind of the inspirational slides. The one on the upper right is probably kind of taken the or a turn towards that with the parapets. And then the ones on the left and the middle bottom show some brackets that we're trying to incorporate into the design as well. Next slide, please. The change from last time is in building 2. As we talked about earlier, that used to be two buildings perpendicular to North Maple and a 1-story amenity center. Question? Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. That used to be 3 different buildings, 2 perpendicular to North Maple, and then a 1-story building in the middle of that. What we've done now is kind of join those 2 buildings. So that's 3 stories all the way across. So the building heights for 1, 2, and 3 are 3 stories. 4 and 5 are 4 stories. And then the garages are lower left across the ditch. Next slide, please. So this is a perspective view at the corner of North Maple and Old Dairy. You see, first comment was about the parapets being maybe a little too simple. We've looked at the parapets in the middle, but I feel like the ones on the corner, because it's a modern building, but we have some traditional detailing, but we kept that one really kind of slim and slick to kind of mimic more modern take on it. And then we also think that the balconies, because of they're all mostly outboard balconies, kind of help with the overall composition of the parapets themselves. So this is the perspective from North Maple and Old Dairy. Next slide, please. This is looking across North Maple into the pool courtyard. So you see sort of the pool courtyard and the ends of building 2. And then in the background is the backside or the short leg of building 3. And we've got landscaping, and since this slide, we've incorporated more landscaping on the board here. This is closer to the actual landscaping plan. So the buffering of Maple, I think, as Aaron said, is going to be a critical part, and I think that can be a fun separation there to kind of be semi-transparent and yet provide privacy as well. Next slide, please. This is the perspective coming from downtown Somerville. Again, this building 3, the last building in sort of the series. And again, you see sort of the simplified balcony or the simplified parapet, and then the breaking up of the parapet as it marches down Maple Street. We provided 2 separate color schemes, but since we submitted, the owner and we've talked among the team, and we think the gray design or the gray color scheme is kind of the one we want to go to. So we can go through the next couple of slides, but it's the same perspectives in red. So yeah, and this one was kind of a shot at taking a little more bolder approach. But again, the architecture is the same. It's just a different color scheme. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. This is the flat elevation of building 1, the building on the corner. So the upper right hand, top view, upper right hand is the building corner at Maple and Old Dairy. And then as it moves to the left, that goes back towards the 4-story buildings in the back of the site. Again, we've looked at the bigger balcony, or the parapets in the center, and kind of broken those up and refined them a little bit more. But same use of materials, board and batten, brick, and horizontal siding. Next slide.
Where's the brick?
The brick is the light gray on the bottom. There you go. Yep. So again, this is looking at the sort of the narrow end of building 1. The green bay in the detail 1 faces the 4-story building. Next. This is building 2, the big building in the middle. The bottom view is from Maple Street. So that's what you're going to see, the 2 ends there. And then in the background is kind of a larger portion of it, which kind of addresses the pool courtyard on this side and the main entrance to leasing and the amenity on the other side. Next. And then that's the main entrance on the bottom. Again, higher parapet in the middle, kind of give the building some hierarchy. And then the top view is just one of the short legs. This is building 4, which is building 3. The last building as you come towards Somerville. Front elevation is on the bottom and the 2 sides are in the middle there. So again, we've tried to clean up the parapets a little bit and give them height differentiation, kind of break it up. Next slide. The 4-story buildings are interesting. The bigger volume in both buildings is off center. And if we can go back to the site plan real quick. Yeah. So the offset, the bigger volume in building 4 is directly across the street from the main entrance. So you have that interesting dynamic of the taller of the 2 buildings talking to each other. And then in building 5, the bigger height is directly across from the end of building 1. So that's why the offset is, and I think looking at it holistically, it makes sense. But when you look at just the elevation, it's a little bit different because it's not centered. So we can go back to those 2 elevations. Yeah, so the bottom view is the front elevation. That's directly across from building 2, the amenities. And then the 2 ends, the top view faces the ditch. And then it's the same building 4 and 5. So again, we tried to break this building up as well, treating the corners a little bit different to kind of lower the scale a little bit. And then the brick as well. And the bulk of this building is horizontal siding. So with that, I'll take any questions or comments. Yeah, absolutely.
Is it okay if I back up?
Of course.
Just Glenn did mention this, but I want to go back to our last presentation with you guys, which did feature a standalone club. We actually integrated the club into the building itself, which we think reads much more urban. It's a lot more sophisticated. The standalone clubs are more typical of kind of your garden grade deal. We're excited about this and think that it faces and interacts with North Maple in a really strong way. Hope you guys feel the same way, but I think it's a big improvement from what you last saw.
Thank you. Well, since we have the elevations up, you want to start with the architecture map?
Did you happen to render the 4-story building like you did the 3-story buildings
We did not.
in perspective?
No.
And when you say horizontal siding, what kind of material is that?
It's all cementitious,
Okay.
so hardy plank or C-Max or these days.
Tim, can you go to the plan view? Site plan. There's another plan that shows the neighborhood Robinwood right next door. Maybe a couple pages up. Yeah, I think that's it. Just wondering what 4 stories is going to look like from the backyards of these single family homes. And it's quite a jump to go from single family to 4-story building, like literally right next door. And I'm not sure that's a problem. I'm just trying to figure out what that's going to look like.
We put the 4 stories back simply because we didn't want them on Maple Street. And then I think what we've done, we've heavily landscaped for adding landscaping to the ditch and all along that back property line. So we pushed them away from the back property line as much as we can to make sort of the rest of the site work.
I guess we can talk about the buffers when we talk about the site, right? Okay.
All right, Art. I don't have any. Nope.
The, one of the renderings, I think, showed the handrails on the balconies being white.
Yes, sir.
I think they all ought to be white. Everywhere, like it shows here.
Okay.
Where you've got white there, I would have white throughout. On the same. Say again.
White handrails throughout.
Handrails and your details that are white on this rendering.
Okay, yeah.
I would do that throughout the project. And then is that Robin Wynn in the back? That's the subdivision in the back is Robin Wynn?
Yes.
I think. Okay. That's all I got, architectural.
Okay.
It doesn't really have much to do with the architecture. I think it looks good. And I know why you put the pool where it is, but I'm very concerned that that pool can be seen from North Maple. And I really think it hurts your project, so you're gonna have to hide it some way because you do not want cars going by in that pool exposed.
Right.
It doesn't look good.
That's, I agree.
So what's
That's the
what
next-
is the solution?
Well, we're looking at everything from just heavily landscaping. And then also they're called living fences. So it's landscape and climbing up a fence. So it's got some transparency and landscape, but we understand
It's
the issue.
it's a pretty big issue. Yeah. Okay. No
Okay.
architecture that.
I feel that I should, Mr. Swicka had a comment. He was unable to be here.
Okay.
So like the project, but parapets are too tall and they detract from the overall image, probably okay at the corners. I disagree. So and I'm here. I think the architecture looks great. I like the color selection. I think there's a lot of building here. which kind of leads me to the landscape question, actually. So if we could just kind of transition to the site, that would be good.
Let me ask one more question. What's happening behind the parapets? Do you have air handlers or is that a flat
Condensing
roof?
units will be on the roof.
I'm sorry.
Condensing units will be on. The roof.
Okay, so it's a flat roof or enough slope to get the water off it,
Sloped roof, correct.
but there's no opportunity for any outdoor living space or anything like that, a rooftop per se.
No. We have
Okay.
not discussed that.
Okay.
That's a tough one in terms of the code. So we generally keep the rooftops for condensing units.
So what's the overall density with 347 units on 18 acres? And what's that density work out to?
I don't have that number.
Like 19? Feels like you're running up right at 19. Okay. That's pretty dense. And how many parking spaces are you showing for 347 units?
597, it's 1.6 per unit, I think.
That's 559 spaces, and then it also has, it includes the 8 garages. Or not park, there's 8 garages that sit on the backside here that belongs.
But that's not counted in the 559,
The 559 is little parks, I think.
including garages. Okay.
So I want to clarify, Chris, the comment from Greg is the parapets are too tall throughout, or? Okay.
Chris, microphone, please.
I think the parapets are perfect.
Yeah, they're fine, but yeah, sorry about the mic. He just thought they were too tall and probably could be kept tall at the front corner and reduced elsewhere. But I can see that your trim and everything right there at the parapet goes really well together. So don't really have a problem.
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. A question on landscaping. So, I mean, you're maximizing the site, obviously, and it's pretty dense. I know this is preliminary. I'm looking at these buildings like kind of right up on the road. Are the renderings, you keep kind of moving forward with this project, the renderings are going to show a little bit more of the density that you have designed, right?
As far as the landscape goes.
Yeah,
density
it's
wise.
not particularly dense for having buildings so close to the road.
Correct. So as we can continue, so it may be best, Tim, to go to the landscape sheets. Just to show a little bit more of what we're thinking. Yep, there you go. So as we move forward, one of the places that we identify to dive into as we move into final is the landscaping around the front of these buildings and even throughout this community. Betsy Ellington is the landscape architect on it, and she did a pretty good dive into the requirements of the buffers to make sure that we planted those well, and then started to look into what we have as far as North Maple. One of the spots that we did identify is right in front of the pool, but we are going to make it denser along North Maple so it provides a little bit more of a secluded feel for these units as they move up against North Maple. So one of the things that we do keep in mind, though, as we continue to design this is North Maple itself is a living project. There's a widening that will be happening with it. So we're very conscious about what that widening is and how our planning and how our infrastructure is affected by that. So, yep.
Okay, and I'm also Yeah, just kind of outside of the buffer requirements in just some areas, I think that probably would need just a little bit of more density and other than along the road there, the back between the big buildings and the residential, maybe it's just, I don't want to necessarily suggest that you have to go beyond the buffer requirement, but it would probably be a good sign, good show, good faith show to beef that up a little bit too.
Yes, sir.
I'm okay with what you were talking about with the pond. You're talking about removing the variance for the pond in order to add more landscaping around the pond.
Yes, sir. But to also create just a little bit more room for the town's maintenance, or really, I guess, the owner's maintenance in this case, around that pond as well.
Okay.
Yep. So it's a little bit of both there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Only landscaping I'm worried about is that pool.
Right. Well, having said that, that area, that big open yard there is kind of,
It's too open. to the road.
it's kind of welcoming maybe to a fall, but something to think about.
I don't know what they can do about it.
You know,
It's easy to screen the pool.
Right.
They only take 6 feet of height to hide the pool from the road. Unless the property's way down lower than the road.
I don't think that's the case. All right. Any other comments? Martin?
It looks like, from what I can tell, that most of your green space is all passive.
That's correct. Most of it is, yes, sir. So the amenity space / the green space that we're really focusing on is what you see around the pool and in front of the pool. And then I guess it's still considered passive, but the green space that we'll incorporate along the stretch of North Maple as well.
On that back buffer, how much of the existing vegetation trees are gonna remain?
So
You're
you're
removing
talking
all
about
of
the
it behind the
buffer.
garages?
go ahead, say that again.
Behind the garages, is that all new plantings or is that
So that's new plantings incorporated in with the grand trees that are back there already.
just the grand trees though?
Yes. So, they'll probably come in and underbrush some of that to get rid of the vines and scrubby stuff, but come back with nice clean plantings that will provide a better buffer than some of that scrubby stuff probably would.
Okay, any other comment? Board? All right, they are seeking preliminary approval with the discussion of the pond as well. So any motions or further discussion on it?
The way you've got it shown currently, it complies with the buffers and the easements.
Yes, sir. So we're required to put a 30-foot buffer onto the easement that is there. It's a 50-foot drainage easement. So right now it complies with what the UDO states.
And how much of a reduction are you looking to get?
Really, anywhere from probably 0 to 15 would be great. But again, it's whatever the board's discretion is at that point.
Okay. All right, so any other further discussion?
I
Candy?
just want to ask about, so between that, that pond and then, of course, the single family that's back there, you have heavy landscaping there,
Yes, ma'am.
the buffer is there,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
you want to reduce that buffer?
Not along the neighborhood piece. It's along the piece adjacent to
The adjoining property?
yes, ma'am. I think the
Okay.
adjoining property is vacant right now, but it's on the, I guess, the quote unquote planned north side.
Okay.
This is probably a good view here where it has the L1.3 square on the planned north side of that pond.
Okay.
That's where the ditch runs through and it's got a 50-foot.
All right. Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am.
All right. Okay, so in light of that clarification, do we have any other further discussion or a motion?
Motion preliminary approval. Grant.
We have a motion for preliminary approval. We have a second.
I don't have any issue with the buffer being reduced on the north side of that pond.
Okay.
I don't know. if that needs to be
Agree. That's
included
part
in
of the motion.
Did you second that? Or just clarify that you didn't have a problem with it?
If that was part of the motion, I am seconding that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks.
Just so that I'm clear, the reduction is at, what was that distance?
I'm gonna have to go to the engineers on that one.
I mean, you can finalize that at final.
Yeah,
We can, that's a great point.
Let's do
too. We
that.
could finalize it at final if we'd like to
then
do
we'll
that.
know exactly what
that'd be
you're
good.
really wanting.
And then we can work to, as far as our plantings go in that area, to show you that.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right, the next item is the main road self-storage. If you would first sign in and state your role in the project. And then we'll get us started on the staff comments.
So the second item under old business is a request for preliminary approval of proposed new self-storage facility on Paradise Point, property zone GB, general business. Property is located on the south side of Paradise Point, west of Bacons Bridge Road. This was last at the board in September, where preliminary approval was denied. Based on the review, following your staff's comments, the building has a 28,700 square foot footprint and is proposed to be 4 stories tall with over 51 feet in height. The proposed layout meets the required buffer depth on all sides, requiring a buffer. The required 8-foot landscape border along the drive aisle to the rear of the property is proposed to be met, which is a change from the prior meeting. The required landscaping in that border does not have the continuous row or staggered row of evergreen shrubs, and does not meet the expected height. And that's just the details. The landscape border for the drive aisle is also missing the required canopy trees every 40 feet. Minimum of 6 canopy trees should be planted along this property line. The front landscaping is very light. The 3 crepe myrtles could be replaced with native canopy trees or canopy trees added in supplement to the crepe myrtles to fill out the front landscaping. The 5-foot front planting requirements must meet section 8.4.2 of the UDO. Signage plan has not been submitted. The building is proposed to have a metal panel cladding and a brick veneer for the central main entrance. Brick pilasters have been added to the drive aisle facing facade, and the design should be consistent with chapter 4, section 4.5 of the UDO. Turn this over to the applicant at this time.
Hey, my name's Andy Bajowski. I'm with Barrier Island Engineering. Have seen y'all a couple times now on this one, so I think everybody's familiar with where this project's located. We are back for preliminary approval. I'll go ahead and touch on the site aspects of this, and then I'll turn it over to the owner to discuss the architecture and some of those comments. So on this updated site plan, we have expanded the buffer depth along the planned north side to 8 feet to meet that requirement. We did so by eliminating a curb there to maintain foundation planting strip on the building. And then there's a significant grade change across the site, I think, as everybody's seen so far. We'll have a retaining wall along the north edge of that drive aisle, and that'll serve as like a 6-inch header curb above the asphalt grade, finished grade on that edge in place of the curb. We narrowed up that section a little bit also to meet that 8-foot depth requirement. On the front of the building, we also added the foundation planting strip between the sidewalk and the building itself. And then we have just the sidewalk connection there to the front door. Everything else from a site plan standpoint has remained the same as y'all saw last time. I don't think there was any significant comments other than the 8-foot buffer and the foundation planting strip. So I will turn it over unless there are site related comments now.
Tim, could you change to the landscape plan? Can you point out where the plant material is added?
Yeah, so across the face of the building there's plant material added on the foundation strip. And then there's been some a little density added along the front at Paradise Point on both sides of the driveway there.
Thank you. Is your architect here?
The owner's going to speak to the architecture. This is Ryan Buck with RM Buck.
How are y'all doing tonight? Ryan Buck, I'm the owner of the property and the general contractor. And I do have the architect with us, Patricia with Cayman's Architectural Group. I haven't been able to speak on the project yet. I had a couple of schedule issues, but I just want to let y'all know that we actually chose this site because most municipalities like self-storage to be second row. I know a lot of municipalities are pushing for that, so self-storage isn't big on the main streets. So we actually were really happy about this site because it's second tier. The site's also quite a bit lower than Bacon's Bridge. It's about 10 feet lower than Bacon's Bridge. So from Bacon's Bridge, the massing of the building is going to be 10 feet shorter because the site is lower. Paradise Point, as you folks know, really dives down as you travel down it. But we've addressed all of the comments from the last meeting. Patricia can help explain some of those comments. We're 4 feet below the max height, so we felt like we were trying to bring things down. But overall, we think it's going to add to the area, with the other buildings that are around it. It's going to be a nice building. We also changed the facades to match the Harris Teeter. So brick's going to match, windows are going to match, color schemes. We want to really blend in with the Harris Teeter. They did a really nice renovation that I'm sure you guys reviewed and approved, and I think it looks great. So we're really trying to coexist with that new shopping center. But I'll let Patricia talk on more of the items with you folks, and I'll kind of help out if I need to.
Hi, my name is Patricia Tsai with Cayman's Architectural Group. I'm here representing the architectural side of this project. Can we see the renderings so we can discuss a couple of the areas? So as Ryan had mentioned, we're the second tier from Bacon's Bridge. Paradise Point comes in and intersects with Bacon's Bridge at this location. The building itself drops at 10 feet. So you get to see the picture more of an aerial view than a perspective eye point level. So we can see the building and how it's going to relate to the site. The next slide, please. This one is showing the perspective at an eye level. As you're coming down from Bacon's Bridge, the Harris Teeter Plaza that's recently renovated would be towards our right. There is a liquor store currently right now showing where the red and green cars are. So as you can see, the building itself, even though it's a 4 stories, because of the location of where it is, it doesn't stand out. It actually blends in a little bit more. We have a lot of tall trees that are going to remain into the site. And that perspective shows that the main focus is still the existing Cirque salon there. And then you can subtle see the building in the back. This view is another aerial view trying to show the building itself. The bottom right, we would be showing that if you are located in AutoZone, you would be able to see the site further back. The logo would be there. And again, there would be a lot of trees buffering the building, so it would be a subtle look towards the back from Bacon's Bridge. Next slide, please. So the main part of this view is to be able to show that the side view that you would see it the most would be is if you were in the parking lot of this Circus Salon that's existing right now. The current parking lot is a little bit run down because there's a lot of invasive greenery. They're coming down and ruining the parking lot a little bit. So our idea was to be able to maintain the greenery, give it a fresh look and not stand out, but be able to have that look where we're sort of representing the building, but not as something that would be new, just to be able to blend in to the site and being able to start improving the site itself that currently is with invasive greenery. Next slide, please. So this is the facing Paradise Point. As you can see, the Paradise Point starts dropping down from Bacon's Bridge. We would be looking at the front facade. The idea was to be able to have improve the landscape. As mentioned before, there's a lot of invasive greenery. Be able to have the brick facade with the beige siding that is very similar to Harris Teeter, because the area has or requires a lot of improvement. There wasn't much off to go by. So what we wanted to do is give it more of a timeless look, where in the possibility that we have anything come into the neighborhood or in the area, we would be able to have that brick and beige timeless look where we're not really standing out. This isn't something modern, but we are there. The lighting would be sufficient enough, so there is not enough to be able to say we're here, but enough to be able to have the building have its unique look, but at the same time blending in with the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And this is just a side view where you can start seeing the front of the building and the side where the stairs and the greenery is. We try to do a little more of a transparent look with the trees because there is a lot of existing trees that are really tall. We want to keep those in there, but be able to show the new building and see what we are proposing. Next slide. This is facing Paradise Point, and on a right-hand side would be another building. I believe it's a law firm. But this shows the entrance and the drive that you would come into the storage building. We would have the logo, more of a subtle look. Again, trying to resemble the Harris Teeter Plaza and be able to blend in with more of the historic colors and have that timeless look. So then we're not really standing out, but be able to improve the location of where it is now. So this slide is actually showing from back of Paradise Point going towards Bacon's Bridge. And again, this is more of a look of trying to see the greenery that's coming in because we have a lot of trees that we're trying to maintain. We ended up doing a lot of the transparent look so the building can be seen with the proposed location. The building on the right-hand side is existing, the two-story building there. So we would be showing where the trees are currently right now, what the building would look like as you are at Paradise Point. And again, facing that section towards the front facade. The retaining wall is actually on the other side.
That's not it there.
There is,
There's already a retaining wall there along the edge of the CPA offices parking lot. That's existing. So along the edge, it would be the left edge on the other side of that truck that's in the rendering. There's an existing retaining wall along there. Parking lot. I think there's an accounting business in that.
yeah, the little small building to the right where the black car is. That's the existing building. Now, one of the things that I wanted to pass around was to show the existing location, because I know we talk about the second tier and we talk about the location of the site. These are pretty much Google Earth pictures showing the existing site. The first picture shows that location from, oh, actually. Okay, so the first picture shows the Circade Salon and the liquor store. As you can see from our rendering, it's pretty on point as to what you would be seeing coming down from Bacon's Bridge. The subtle elevation, you would see the front facade coming down, but because Paradise Point drops 10 feet, you're able to sort of have that look of blending in towards what stands out currently right now. So we're not trying to make it higher than what is currently there, but we're trying to blend in with what we are currently dealing with. The next picture shows Paradise Point coming out from Harris Teeter. The lot itself, you could see the trees and the tall greenery. It is very invasive right now. There's a lot going on there that it's damaging the property as well as the adjacent property. The idea is to be able to come in with the landscape, be able to improve the location, be able to have some lighting in there. It gets very dark coming to that location because it's a secondary tier. So traffic there isn't much going down there except if you were to go to the community in the back. And then the third picture shows Harris Teeter, and what we're trying to do is have that same look. The green windows, the brick and the beige facades that have recently been improved. So then that way our building blends in with what is currently there. We understand that the location itself has a lot of improvement to do. And having that look, we'll be able to have more of a timeless facade. So then that way we're not modern. If it goes on a different direction, we're not trying to stand out, but we're trying to improve the location and improve the landscape. The next picture is standing at the parking lot of AutoZone. And the property would be in further back. As you can see, the biggest things that you get to see right now is the trees. They're really tall, they're very prominent. The building would be settled, and we have that rendering showing in a perspective view. I believe it's one up.
If I could interrupt for a second, does the board all understand the context pretty much? She's conveying,
Yeah, got it.
you've done a great job on that, so thank you so much for that.
You got it.
And we know where it is, and we are picking up on, you're trying to match the Harris Teeter a little bit, I appreciate that. So when you say timeless look, how are you achieving a timeless look?
Well, what we're trying to achieve is more of a having the brick look and having the look that if anything was to improve in the location, we are not standing out to be modern. We're representing more of a subtle look that's already there. We understand that the location needs to have improvement in there. But the timeless look would be more of the windows that we have there. They're not storefront. It's not showing something where it stands out as being modern. Somerville has more of the brick and beige look in the site. So we're trying to mimic that. So we don't have that modern look coming into the property.
When you say the location needs to improve, what do you mean by the location needs to improve?
So on one of the pictures, there's a plaza that's right behind us. It's pretty much run down. There's not a
So the
retaining.
adjacent existing development you feel is going to renovate over time?
Yes.
Okay.
As you can see there, there's not a retaining wall there. Nobody's really taking care of the location. So eventually it is going to improve. New things are going to come up, and we want to be able to have the look where we don't stand out, but enough to be able to say we are trying to improve with what's there.
Okay. And did you look at the existing building in front of you for any design inspiration? It's got kind of this, to me, kind of this exaggerated 1-story, 2-story kind of industrial look with the taller, thinner windows. Did you look at that for inspiration at all, or is it just the
Yes.
Harris Teeter?
So the idea was to be able to have the building itself has the smaller windows as it comes up, and then it has that prominent brick. We wanted to mimic that as well, where the front facade shows the front entrance having a storefront, but the taller windows get smaller as it goes up, to not be able to have that sort of storefront look, but more resembling to what's already there.
Okay, Tim, could you go to that elevation, please? Is this the elevation you're referencing?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, in your opinion, that matches the building on the front, used to be the Quazell building, I think. I don't know what it is
Yep.
now. Charleston line. Okay,
Mhm.
alrighty. But this brick is different from that brick. The brick matches the teeter, correct?
Yes, we do have a sample.
Okay.
Yeah, we brought some samples if you want to look at it. I don't mind matching the brick.
No, I'm just verifying,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
leaning either way. So,
yeah, we chose the grocery just because it was the newer project that had been resurfaced and thought maybe you guys Like that.
Sure. All right, anything you want to add? Anything else you want to add? Or we kind of deliberate and we can talk, y'all can talk more later as well, but
Yeah, just a couple quick things. We screened the stairs. I'm sure you guys saw that in all the slides. Trying to think what else. We answered all the questions kind of in a detailed manner. So if there's any other questions for that, we're happy to answer them from a site plan or architecture.
let's get started with site first.
Tim, can you go to sheet C6? Maybe the grading and drainage then. Can you kind of walk through what the thought process was for the drainage? Because the adjoiner lot has an existing storm drain easement on it, which I think is also for underground detention. And then it looks like you're picking that up and putting it through your detention pond and filling in the area that is non-jurisdictional.
Right, so there, that is an outlet. There is an easement there on the adjacent property. There's no easement across our property, and their box right there is failing. The curb's undercut, the curb's caving in on top of that storm structure. Something needs to be done with it other than to leave it in its current condition. And it's, in my opinion, I don't think that ever should have been allowed to just dump straight onto somebody else's property like that. But we are where we're at now and have to deal with it in order to develop this site. So I think our best option here was to pick it up and route it around through our pond. You know, I mentioned before that we'll be doing a pervious surface to this driveway. We have a geotech report with a pretty good looking seasonal high groundwater table that's going to allow us to do something within that storage system of the pervious pavement. So our intent is not to meet all stormwater requirements in just that small pond, but rather to kind of collect that outfall point and route it around and then treat the rest of the probably left 2/3 of our building in a system within that pavement section.
Okay.
I think you need to check with the town engineer because that drainage easement was established by the town and the property next door tied into the existing drainage easement, which was there prior to that building being there. So their underground detention goes to that drainage easement. And the town let it go to your property because it's been going there for about 50 years. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, we can look into it, but
The town engineers would give you history out of it, I think.
yeah, we can certainly work on that. I think we've kind of been overcoming some hurdles with the architecture that I think we need to shore up, and then we can look into you know, finalizing some more technical design.
But that picks up highway water too. That drainage easement and this underground detention on the building above you. And so it's limited to pre-construction runoff rates, which are relatively minimal. Most of your water is coming from the highway in that drainage easement.
Yeah, we'll be sure to work on that on the technical side.
Start on architecture.
One thing on the site, I don't see any parking to speak of. I see what 3 parking spaces in the back. So where are people going to park that are going to put stuff in this storage complex?
So there is the ADA space and a space up front for the office. And then there's 3 in the back. So a total of 4 non-ADA.
Yeah,
As far as I understand the UDO, there was no parking requirement specifically for the storage. And I think it was applied to just the office space part of the building, is my understanding from our preliminary meeting. So our parking supply meets the square footage requirement for the office portion. And then we've supplied an additional couple of spaces for the loading and unloading. At the back of the building, there's intended to be sort of like an automatic opening door for loading and unloading of, box truck type area in the back.
So you've got an elevator in the building to get to the upper levels. So I mean, I don't think that it's gonna bother we shouldn't bother the town. If y'all are short on parking, it's gonna bother y'all. So it's more incumbent on y'all to protect yourselves.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of spaces, but I think most of the traffic per se will be people moving in, people moving out.
That's right.
Quite a large staging, we call it a loading and unloading area where multiple vehicles, big and small, can back up to the sliding door.
Okay.
Usually people don't hang out much more than that.
And just also to add on and clarify in the back, that Y-shaped turnaround is for fire, meets the IFC for the fire radius and distance on that, with enough space for a loading zone still between what would be the edge if it was not, all paved. So it'll be, we can stripe that out and really identify those areas so people aren't parking in fire turnaround zone.
Bill, from the town's perspective, we don't want these sites to be overparked. And if they don't need to put down more asphalt, more surfaces, the better. We try to defer to them. They're the experts in what their need is for parking. And if they say that they can make it work with 4, I mean, they're not traffic generators. This does not require a TIA.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No skin off our foot.
Yeah, I mean, if they have a problem, they're gonna have to figure out a way to deal with it. And it's not like it's gonna spill out onto the public streets with the business that it generates. So we felt as a town that this is an appropriate amount of parking based on what we've seen in the past from other operators. And if this is what they're bringing to us, that makes the most sense.
All right, any architectural comments? I'm gonna read that section. Well, the architect is not present, but he did have a kind of a general comment. He says he has concerns about it and would vote against the project.
I'm sorry, David.
He said he has concerns about it and would vote against the project. That's what the architect that is not here today said. He didn't give specifics.
But
No.
I have a couple architectural comments. First, I think you've done a good job demonstrating, what the building looked like from different angles from the street in particular, and how it's kind of down lower than the other buildings. And I appreciate matching up. You've looked at the context and that. And I think my comments would be, do you have metal at the top of the front elevation? Is that metal up at the top there? Let's see, 10, sheet 10, I guess. I wouldn't actually comment too much on the rendering. Doesn't actually show the building as well as the elevation doesn't show the building as well as the renderings. So if you want to go up to a rendering, that 65 there, that'd be all right. So is that metal up at the top? And then the rest is siding on this side. And then as you go around the sides, it's siding, or is it, it's all metal? Okay. I think, moving forward, it looks significantly better than it has. The proportions of the windows are a little strange to me, how the ones along the top are just they're very horizontal. I'm not saying we want like super vertical windows, because vertical windows make a building look taller, and this is tall enough. But maybe look at the configuration of the 4th floor windows a little bit more. And also anytime you have siding or brick, kind of really look at the details of that. Is it just a flat wall of brick, or are there? I see there are some detail in there. Make sure you kind of emphasize that so that we can see any recesses or anything that's going on with the brick. The brick detailing will be important.
You can kind of see that there's some dimension to the brick, but we can certainly detail that better. But you can see where it's in and out a little bit. So
And my last comment would be and I do also appreciate the screening of the stairs. I think that one perspective from the parking lot was very clear. Also with the siding, I would also look at, trimming out the windows or, is there, where the brick meets the siding, is there trim there, or is it just the siding going directly into the brick, that kind of thing? Those are the details I think that we would look at if, moving forward. Those were my comments.
I have just a question. Are those windows, windows you can actually see through when you see the interior?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I know that was a question at the last
Okay.
meeting, but that is gonna let light into those corridors, so to speak. So they are real windows.
Okay. And Ms. Parvis, do you have any concerns, you as well, but do you have any concerns about the lack of windows or anything on the side elevation? Yeah, the sides or the rear.
I'm not sure how the interior layout is. I think that they probably have storage units up against all the perimeter in order to have interior corridors.
That's right, the perimeters or units, and the interior is where the hallways and ingress, egress.
My concern is up for discussion is it kind of looks like a very monolithic wall or plane on all the other three sides. And I wonder if this building is just going to seem oversized for the lot.
I think the problem with this building is this elevation is only seen from Harris Teeter's parking lot. From Bacon's Bridge Road, you're gonna see one of these, that blank wall with some brick pilasters and metal panels with no openings, no fenestration, nothing, just.
I don't think you're gonna see this building at all from Baker's Bridge Road.
Yeah.
You may be right.
You're gonna see just a little bit of the top. It's kind of
Okay.
elevated. So that we didn't really. We were hoping on it. There's tons of money into the sides that weren't gonna really matter. The front facade-
This is what you'll see. This is the other building
Yeah.
here.
The front facade and the right facade are really gonna be the most seen sides of the building, unless you're actually like moving in your unit in the back. But other than that, people really not.
And the other building might be all the way over here. Here.
The idea too is that on the side of the adjacent building, there's a lot of tall trees. So even if we were to add windows, the trees itself cover a lot of the side of the building. There was one of the renderings that we had done, it actually shows that the trees would be pretty tall. On the pamphlet that I had giving as well on page 4. On page 3, from the AutoZone, you can clearly see how tall the trees are all the way in the back. They stand out a lot. And I'm looking at this picture here. The trees here are the ones that are in our property.
All right, any other comments? Andy, anything? Is there anything you specifically wanted to bring up again on the staff comments?
I think just making sure that the landscaping is right, the border, they've addressed the depth of the buffer specifically. The front, the crepe myrtles, they're small ornamental trees. I think, they've been talking about the height of the existing trees on the property. I think planting trees that might attain some height in the future would be beneficial to the frontage of this as well. It would help flesh out that and provide some additional screening. I mean, it is what it is, and generally they've met most of the requirements. There's nothing from staff standpoint that really stands out and has to be addressed.
Okay. I think your tree height comment is very valid, so. All right, well, they're asking for preliminary approval. If someone would like to make a motion.
Motion for preliminary approval with comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is 309 North Maple Street. Good to see you again. Was just for the record, if you just state your name and role. I think we know it, but it's for the minutes.
My name is Greg Owens. I'm the property owner, 309 North Maple.
Tim, do you have any comments?
Yeah, this is a request for final approval for a proposed new multi-tenant commercial building. Property zoned LI light industrial. It's located at 309 North Maple across the street from the sawmill. Received preliminary approval with comments in October. The applicant has clarified that the project is not going to be phased. We addressed that at the last meeting. There is no minimum parking requirement for this type of proposed uses, though other commercial retail uses are permitted in LI zoning. There are 118 parking spaces proposed for the 54,000 square feet. This is approximately 2.18 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is above the general commercial entertainment requirement of 2 per 1,000. This is an increase from the prior submittal. Staff supports the suggestion from the previous meeting to remove parking in the lower right corner of the site to accommodate the existing pines that are currently proposed to be removed. This would help address the Tree Protection Board recommendation. At their October 10th meeting, the Tree Protection Board gave approval for the tree removal shown in the packet and the recommendation to restudy preserving the 36-inch live oak and to concentrate on preserving the trees along Elks Lodge Lane as much as possible. This was discussed at the last meeting. The tree board did come and express their concerns. A mix of shrubs across the fronts of the buildings would provide better visual interest with different colors and textures on plants. The plans should reflect the proposed location of planting beds, and proposed materials should not overlap sidewalks and access ways. 6 bicycle parking spaces must be provided on site. Architecture includes a mix of materials. The proposed buildings are 21 feet tall. Proposed signage must meet the requirements of Chapter 10 of the UDO. Roof-mounted signs are not permitted, but the board does have the authority to approve a modification to the requirements of Chapter 10.
Tim, can we start? I just want to run through the comments page by page, A 1.1. Which is not on the civil set. Okay, so last meeting, one of the changes we've made, we've extended the landscape buffer in the front of these buildings. I think before it was at 3 feet, it's now at 5 feet, which meets the standard. The freestanding canopies that are located in the center of the building, they are now anchoring in the landscaped area. Previously, they were anchoring on the sidewalk, so that change has been noted here. There were also some questions regarding the depth of the front canopies, or I should say the canopies in general. That dimension's been noted here at 7 feet. We'll go to A 1.2, please. Comment last time was, I guess, suggesting that the building be flipped. I'd mentioned the reasons why that's not a feasible undertaking, but one of the things I've done to really address the heart of the comment is to cut back the front corner that ties in with the entryway, which will not only reduce the building frontage on North Maple Street, but also gives us additional landscaped areas and provides a nice entryway into the project, so that it's basically being bordered by landscaping instead of building corner. Next one, please. 1.3. So this is building 3 on site. We've done the same thing with the top corner here, which is essentially on the corner of Elks Lodge Lane in North Maple Street. So again, replacing a roll-up door with a man door, some additional landscaping to sort of soften that corner, really enhances that. One of the things we've also done is we have recessed the center portion of the building to add additional landscape area, break up the massing, create some visual intrigue to that building, which is a vast separation from the first 2 submittals that we've talked about here. Next slide, please. 2.1. Greg mentioned the last meeting regarding the timber framing for the canopies. They have been reduced from 8x8 to 6x6. One of the things you'll see on this plan that's different, we talked about it, was not shown on the plan, was the signage. Tim, the signage that you see here is actually mounted on the parapet. So
It's above the roof line
So can it be approved?
by the board.
Okay. We're also showing you a different sign on building 2. But I know that one of Greg's comments at the first meeting was he wanted to create a place, sort of brand the project. I think these signs do a good job of giving this a sense of place instead of it just being another commercial project.
Just because you're on the slide, don't want to have to go back to it. So there's a sign in the upper left called the mill. And looks like there's signs on the little building canopies. Is that the intention?
Those are just illustrative, tenant signs. I think it says retail office, or retailer office.
Okay.
Just to give the viewer a sense of, what individual tenant signs would look like.
So it's definitely on that shed roof. It's just vertical sticking up. Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it's not intended to overpower the site. It's sort of to be just a very simple call out for a tenant.
Thank you.
Okay, 2.2, please. Again, here, looking at the corner of building 2 in response to the comment, we're placing that roll-up door with a man door with landscaping. I think it is a much better look for Main Street, that we're looking at 55 feet of building frontage, not 75 feet. And more landscaping, I think, handles the overall comment the first 2 meetings we've talked about of sort of making it more aesthetically pleasing to the streetscape. Also, you'll see the signage here that I've got on the side of the building as well. 2.3. All right, so this is building 3. Where am I here? Okay, the building's divided into 3 sections, 7 bays on each side with 2 bays in the center. And as I mentioned, the middle section is set back 20 feet for green space and landscaping. When we went back to redesign this, one of the things we wanted to do was to create, I don't think these buildings in the project should be polar opposites. I think they should complement one another. And so we're trying to keep the same theme from building to building without, dramatically changing the style or context of the architecture in the project. 2.4. We have, in addition to the material selections we've had on the first two submittals, we've also added what the lighting will be inside the project there. And I do want to address a couple of comments that were made from last meeting that were not part of that review just then. I think we've done a good job of increasing the overall landscaping in the project with the changes that we've made by cutting out the fronts of those buildings, recessing the center part of building 3. I believe I've addressed the comment regarding rotating the buildings, which I think provide a better overall flow for the project. One comment that was made was we've shown on the plan, if you go down, I think to the maybe next slide, Tim, we are showing where the mechanicals are located, how they'll be screened on the project. And as it relates to some of the comments regarding trees, the 9 parking spaces in the corner, the live oak, I think one of the things that I'm not getting credit for in this forum is if you go to the site plan, Tim, there's a bump out portion of my site, which is untouched. It's just under an acre and it can be developed. I didn't include it in the site plan. And if I had shown you development here and peeled it back, you would have said, great job. But because I'm not showing you anything here, I'm not getting credit for the fact that it's staying untouched. And so, you know, I feel like I'm doing more than the minimum is, you know, necessary to save the, you know, trees on site. And if I have to go and cut out 9 spaces on the rear of building 3, I'm basically eliminating my ability to market that space for tenants because I'll be able to lease the top half of it and then no one's going to want to lease the bottom half. And I'm going to be having to be stuck with a single tenant in that space, which is, it's a negative hit on the project that doesn't need to happen. So I would like to get some consideration for the fact that that other area is being untouched. Those trees are not being untouched, or I should say they're not being touched. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Great explanation. Thank you for being responsive. Tim, can you zoom in to the entrance and the view along Maple Street? And can you talk about that a little bit? We talked about kind of completing the street, considering a wall, maybe doing a little bit of screening. You mentioned a berm last time before. And we mentioned landscaping at the ends of the buildings, which I think you've addressed. I think, and now subsequently you've added a sidewalk. Can you just talk about what we're going to see along that street? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, again, not to sound, you know, silly, but it's a significant enhancement of what's there, right? A derelict office building that's been vacant for close to 7 years now. You know, the landscaping and shrubbery that I presented is in accordance with the UDO. I think that the landscaping, as you look at the exterior elevations here, is, in my opinion, a significant over improvement. I understand and I'm sensitive to people's belief system as to what this road will soon become once it's widened. But I think this plan does a very good job of softening the hard structures of these buildings. You'll see that you've got landscape plantings on the corners. We've reduced 2 of the corners. I was on site just before this meeting to give it a once over. And I think what the plan doesn't show is there is a significant amount of landscape screening and buffering along Elks Lodge Lane. Okay. Just because a 3-inch or 5-inch tree
isn't shown on a tree survey, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, especially when it's a high density cluster. For those that have been down Elks Lodge or have been at 405, you know, I don't think this plan really does a good job of showing just how dense the vegetation is along there. So I think this is going to be a destination for people in the town, but I also think it's not going to be an eyesore.
Okay, thank you.
They were on all Lane. Is that what you said? The
Elks Lane.
Okay.
Elks Lane. Elks Lodge Lane. Anything else before we discuss it amongst ourselves? Don't want to get started down there? Anything?
I do appreciate the changes you made. I can see where you've made a true effort to address those comments, and I appreciate that. I actually have spent some time on that site since our last meeting, and it is a significant improvement over what's there now or what's not there now. And considering who your neighbors across the street, I feel like your architecture is kind of fitting in with the whole industrial kind of feel there. So thank you for those addressing those comments. I don't know that I have any additional comments.
I think your architecture blends in very well with the latest thing we approved there for Robert Pratt next door to you. Which is his latest building is an improvement over his first building. Which wasn't, you know, that was built when we weren't around. And your building, I think, is an improvement over what Robert nicely did. I like Robert's. I like yours better. And that oak tree that was in question down there, I keep looking at that thing every day and it's ugly. It's not a good looking tree. And an arborist could probably tell you it's gonna die anyway. Just doesn't look healthy, but I think you've done pretty well.
Thank you.
I think it's a significant improvement. You did a good job. I like the corners that have been softened. And I think the landscape layout very well complements and gives us the screening we need for the road.
Right. I echo everyone else's comments. I think you've been very responsive and professional, and I appreciate that. I think your architect has made some changes that made it better. So I think it's again, I think you've done what you needed to do. Responded very reasonably. I think it's good. I'm going to read the architect that is not present had a few comments or one comment. He says, I like this project overall. I think the long building needs to not look like two of these small buildings put together. So he's asking for.
Can I just make one other comment? I just had a question about the signs that you've shown. And so you've got some of them sitting up on the top and then you've got some on the side. Is there any consistency to that? Or are you going to request the signs to sit the way you've presented them?
I'm asking the way it's presented, and just to note, there's no sign on building 3, just building 1 facing North Maple basically on the top of the roof. And then there's a horizontal sign more eye level on building 2.
On building, but nothing on 3.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to know what that was.
All right. They are asking for final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Their second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of final approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're gonna take 5 minutes and then Wash Wizard will be up next.
I'm just gonna go, site plan, architecture, landscape. I should have sorted that in order when I did it. I borrow your pen and one thing, yeah. I'm getting a lot of use. I was gonna keep that. Someone stole the pen. I started. I had break. Great, right? Yeah. Car wash service. Yes, I like that one a lot too. So it's all email, but he usually is like next day response. Well, he gave me a price break.
Just a reminder, anybody who's speaking at the podium, please sign in and just try to speak into the microphone so that when I do the minutes, I can hear you. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Ready to go? All right, so this is the Wash Wizard team here. I'm Brian Cook, one of the owners. Jason McKinley, one of the owners as well. We have Vince Tilly representing EarthSource and the site plan, and Walker Industries, Todd Walker, for the architecture.
I would suggest just going any high level things that you may have tweaked or changed. Maybe this we were planning on doing anyway.
Yes,
But
that's
just kind of
exactly
the-
what I had planned.
the,
Yeah, just here's
just the
what
high
you guys
points.
commented and exactly what we did was
Perfect.
kind of my format.
Thank you.
So I was gonna go through just the changes that we made. If Tim, you could pull up maybe the site plan, I'll start with site work changes. The first comment was about the traffic flow at the entrance and the shared drive. So we did study that flow. I shared with them some videos of how people drive through the car wash. We had the traffic study done and just got those results, but we did add 2 more stop signs. So now there's a stop sign for the other retail center. And there is a stop sign for our lot as well as another stop sign further back as the customers are exiting so that they can kind of give you a merging between those to those two properties. It also leaves you enough stacking space where you're not blocking the turn into our property. The traffic study came back with a recommendation to lengthen the left-hand turn lane into our property on Bacon's Bridge Road by shortening the turn lane into, it's called Palmetto Plaza, I believe. So there wasn't enough traffic going that way that we could kind of borrow. They wanted 2 additional spaces, and that would just be a restriping to make a left turn into our property. I think that's it on that part. And then we also reduced the building by 10 feet, which freed up space to increase the garden space. I think it was mentioned to kind of make that a corridor to Stallsville. So we have a lot of plantings that I'll go over there in the landscape plan, but it opened up space in the corner by doing that. The new building design that we've gone with kind of took away some of our view, if you will. So we added a monument sign at the entrance area there. And we also enlarged the island in between our entrance queuing space and our exit space as well. So that was it for changes on the site plan. Lots of changes on the architecture side. So the comment was to design for the uniqueness of the Stallsville Loop area. And do better than the bad development on Bacon's Bridge and Old Trolley Road and be a complement. So I know the medical building was referenced before, so we did get those renderings in to look at, and we did pull up some elements from the medical building that's under construction on the side of the church, as well as pulling in elements from the church itself. So we went with a gable design. Actually, I don't know if you can pull up the architecture, Tim. The renderings are there that show the new elevations. Yeah, he does not, unfortunately, the renderings didn't come in time to make it up on the screen, but yeah, you can look at those. Yeah, right there. So we did, we created a gabled roof design. Why don't you hold each of the rendering views? Expensive easels. So we did create a gabled roof design, which is probably best to see. Is there one or I like that on the aerial the best. So we incorporated the dormers concept that came in from the medical building that was approved. We did add, I don't know what the right word is, but kind of like how the church has these V bump outs. So we've replicated some of that. We also copied the front elevation to the back side. So there's no, I guess, preferred or better side, if you will. The church is getting just as good of a view, and you can kind of see. It looks like as you're approaching down Stallsville, you can see the side of the building there. We increased the trim package to more closely replicate what was done with the medical building. We also went with a combination of hardy board and board and batten and lap siding. Kind of mix it up, and that's the same kind of a similar approach that the medical building had done as well. Let's see. We also, on the architecture plan, we went with the gabled pay station canopy. We did, once I saw it rendered, the roof looked a little flat, so we did add middle sections you can see down here, another kind of V section to make that not look so much roof going across that large span. And on the pay station canopy, it was commented that they wanted 4 columns instead of 3, so we did go with the 4-column design. That's the view that you'll see from the corner of Bacon's Bridge and Stallsville. We did create the renderings here because they wanted to see how the church looked in comparison. So we had an aerial rendering made here that kind of shows you some perspective of both pieces of property. On the rendering, there's also in the Tim, if you can show it, there's kind of a site plan that shows us our site layout over top of the overall area. I think it's maybe like one of the very early slides. So we kind of laid out our site to show it in context to the two, yeah, you were just not, there you go, the two other properties. So you can see there's a good bit of buffering there's an easement in between the church and us, as well as our 5-foot buffer. And then we also have then the length of the detention pond. So our properties, I know there was concern about how our proximity would be to the church. So we are a good ways away from the church. I think that's it in terms of our changes on those. And then the landscape plan, we have a lot of changes. If you guys want to pull up the landscape, that one's probably a little harder to see, but we did get a copy of the plant list. So we have 16 out of 19 of the species that we've selected are from the Somerville recommendations. The only ones that are not are we used some drift roses on the interior space, as well as lots of azaleas. I thought I heard don't use encores, but you do like the encores. Okay, see, I thought I was right about that. I did change those to Tabor and Formosa. Because there's not an azalea on the recommended plant list. So I thought that was odd because I'm like, Somerville's kind of, I thought, known for azaleas, but there's not one on there. But Tim told me why. But that and society garlic, which we use just sparingly throughout the site. So most everything on there is from the recommended recommendations that we pulled from Somerville. We did create a redesign on that front corner. I think the architect did a good job there, kind of creating something unique and interesting with lots of great colors and different varying heights. I thought it was a really nice representation of that, because wanted to treat that area as a kind of a entrance to the Stallsville Loop area. And that is it. A summary of all the feedback and what we did to address it from the last meeting.
Y'all can set that back down if you want, I think. I will read Greg's comment, who's not here today. He's not in favor of the project. The car wash should belong to Bacon's Bridge Road and not to Stallsville Loop. The building at the corner destroys the character of Stallsville Road and reduces the value of adjacent buildings. The building, parking, and pay lines should be reduced and rotated 45 degrees counterclockwise so they face Bacon's Bridge with ponds and more planting along Stallsville. Anyone like to make any comments?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your renderings. I think you could probably get a junkyard approved with those renderings.
I thought the same. I was super impressed. I gave the company a shout out on our industry forum. Like, if you need renderings, check with these guys. My architect referred us to them, and I was like, you lost my business on that, because they did awesome. My people that printed it, I thought they were real pictures.
They're close.
Yeah, fabulous.
I was like, these are just renderings.
Candidly, I wish this was something other than a car wash. We seem to have our fair share of car washes here lately, but as far as car washes go, I think it's a good looking plan.
Yeah, no, there are a lot. This will probably be our last project. I think the market is getting pretty built out, but in general, what you're seeing is this growth is going across the industry because people love these monthly unlimited plans. And so instead of washing 3 times a year, they're washing 3.6 times a month now. There's more people moving here, of course, so it's growing and people are washing more frequently, and people aren't washing in the driveway anymore. That's down from 40% 10 years ago down to 20% that wash in the driveway. So the demand is there and you're seeing the market respond.
Yeah, I feel like
you
you've got
$6 million if people aren't going to come on it either. So
I feel like y'all have addressed all the comments, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Bravo, keep it up.
All right, awesome.
Anything?
I don't want to be the architect that's swayed by amazing renderings. But I am. I mean, it looks great. You responded to everything. I think, we've seen a lot of different car washes and I have yet to see one respond to a context as well as this one.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kim.
I totally agree. And it's going to be probably the most beautiful car wash Somerville has. But you put it in a great place. It's going to make all of that area, give it a good facelift. And you're going to get a lot of people in there.
I hope so.
You will.
I think it responds well to Stallsville. I think especially you see it in the rendering that the building is almost parallel with the church, and I think it's going to kind of read like it is somewhat. I'm a little concerned about the exiting the site because I feel like you're going to make a U-turn to get out. I think it's going to be very awkward. At the end of the day, yeah, when you're exiting the site to make a right as if you're going back down towards downtown Somerville, I think that's going to be tricky, especially with some of the bigger vehicles that you see. But at the end of the day, that is staff's review. And if they're comfortable with that, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I was
So-
more concerned on the site and they did model it with like an extra large van, and that's one of the reasons why we moved some things around and shortened the building by 10 feet. So the traffic moves we're concerned about that too. It's of primary importance, but I showed them videos of us at a really busy time to show them kind of what the traffic flow is like. So it's not a concern to us after studying it, that traffic will be able to get in and out of there.
Very good, very good. And I think the planting plan, you'll listen to what we said. The plant palette is very indicative of Somerville, and I think it's one of the best planting plans I've seen in years come through here. So kudos to the designers on that as well. So good job. I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
They're asking for final approval, I believe. Would someone like to make a motion
I'll motion for final approval.
or a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. So it was all on email. I could only like exchange like at 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And otherwise it was the next day. They were very. So they put on the- Yeah, so they're great. So you ever want their name? Yeah.
Next is Corey Boulevard offices.
So the fifth item under old business is an application for final approval for a proposed car wash conversion to office warehouse space. The property is zone GB general business. This is northwest corner of Corey Boulevard and Boone Hill Road. This was at the September meeting where it received preliminary approval. The following are staff comments: existing pavement to be removed and replaced, expanding available parking, existing paving in the right of way to be removed and replaced with sidewalk. There will be some tree removal, which may require a tree removal permit. Proposed office space to be added on the Corey Boulevard side with existing bays acting as storage space. The DRB was generally supportive of the requested buffer reduction for the parking, exterior side and rear drive to accommodate the proposed redevelopment. The existing vegetation must be field verified by the town staff to meet buffer requirements adjacent to the multifamily residential property. All proposed planting materials must meet the minimum size requirements of section 8.7.1 and foundation plantings required per section 8.4.2. Planting materials should have a greater variety than proposed. Proposed architecture reuses existing metal roof, the addition of hardy siding and a brick veneer. So applicants here and they will they can take over from here.
Well, I'm Gary Lee. Welcome me back. It's funny that they're wanting to build one and I'm wanting to basically tear one down. So I know Robert Corey's been working really hard and made a lot of changes, even if I didn't agree with them. So hopefully y'all will see those changes and let's get this thing sort of started. 'Cause I'm tired of running off the homeless, and picking up trash. It's just really become an eyesore. So anything y'all can do or put it, input you can give and let us get this thing rolling, we appreciate it. Robert.
Corey Stillings with Live Oak Consultants for the civil engineer on the project. One of the main comments we got as far as the site layout last time was the configuration of the sidewalk in the front as well as the landscaping. It was kind of highlighting that middle doorway, which is the shared bathroom. So we've reconfigured it to kind of direct traffic more to the offices and screen that doorway more from the roadway. I've also changed the planting types. I know that was one of the comments. We have Drake elms, sphereas, boxwoods, and crepe myrtles currently proposed. As far as the site, everything else has pretty much been the same. We don't have any other comments on those. Turn it over to Robert.
Robert Gerber, GJS Architecture. If we could turn to the elevations, I think that'd probably be the best thing to do. From the last comments, we've gone ahead and more detailed to the exterior of the building, selected the finishes that we feel are appropriate for this. If we could look at the color rendering, that might be the best one. We've got a mix of materials, basically attempting to come out with a more contemporary industrial appearance to it, and utilizing the car wash features for storage with offices in front. We think we've done a good job with addressing how do people come off the street toward these, if indeed they will, and minimizing the sidewalk toward the restrooms. We think that worked out really well with nice landscaping along the street corners. You can see the choice of materials there. It's noted that in the minutes it says that it's hardy, and we've got corrugated vertical siding. We got horizontal siding, brick, and then aluminum storefront. We're not showing any hardy on it, but it's noted that that was in the minutes. But we feel that it's a good use of taking an existing building, adaptive reuse, creating a facility that can be used by a variety of smaller contractors or different groups without getting into something large, and just utilizing adaptive reuse of existing containers to create a very interesting feature from using an existing car wash.
Anything else? Anything else on your behalf? Okay. Any discussion? Candy?
I feel like you've addressed our concerns, and I think it is a big improvement. I'm not a landscape expert, but are these grasses that you put in front? Is that what they are? Are they grass? Are they what is that material?
That is showing grass. We have spheria shrubs shown on the front. They're a flowering shrub, and then along the Boone Hill side in front of the park or the loading area, we have boxwoods.
Oh, they're boxwood?
Is the rendering reflective of the planting plan?
Okay. Yeah, because I couldn't tell what they are, so they're boxwoods.
But does the rendering generally match the planting plan? As far as, I mean, work placement and that sort of
We
thing?
can make an attempt to do that. We feel we've done
The placement.
as opposed to just the color that the landscape architecture, color that the materials are more conceptual, that there is some feature that.
Okay, so this is the landscape plan. So it's,
Okay,
I think that-
okay, all right, well, good, that helps.
Right, any other comments? Architectural or site? I can read Greg's.
Yeah, if you want to do that.
Be the icebreaker here. It said, paraphrasing here, he feels the owner and architect have made it enough better to approve.
Well, if you've heard the prior comments.
Yeah. This is better.
So, I was trying to figure out what the metal siding, the charcoal metal siding really looks like, because it looks like horizontal siding. But I think it said it was vertical somewhere.
We've got vertical and horizontal. We've got corrugated as a vertical, and then we've got some vertical in the back, which matches the horizontal in the front. So similar materials, different application, different direction, depending on what elevation it's on.
Gotcha. I mean, I think it looks pretty good, especially in light of where it's been. So I think the only thing I would say is I like the reuse of the containers. Maybe build that up a little bit more to have a parapet instead of just being right at that height. But that's more of just a suggestion. It's not something that not a hill I'll die on. So session joke. So anyway, that's really it. Much better.
Yeah, where are the HVAC units? Where are the HVAC units?
There'll be mini splits, and that's yet to be determined. They'll be attempted to be concealed behind landscaping, and they'll just be in the front units of the office areas.
Just the office.
Just the office.
Okay. All right, I think I'm gonna be the lone voice of dissent here. I'm not a fan of this project. Just to tell you, I don't really like the use of containers. I think the context is not right for this part of town. I understand you're trying to renovate a car wash. I get it. It's limited. Personally, I have more concerns with it than I have in favor of it. So I mean, it's just not for me. I don't think I need to get into like super detailed specifics, but just want to tell you that before we vote. They're asking for final approval. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, final approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor of final approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I'm opposed. All right, thank you so much. Take care. Next up is the Pine Trace Natural Area.
So
Chris, I don't.
the first item under new business is a request for conceptual review for a new eco park. Property is zoned public lands. This is located on the south side of Miles Jamison Road, adjacent to the Coastal Center. It's currently undeveloped, and this is the first meeting. The proposal, as I says, for a new 306-acre regional park by Dorchester County. A welcome center, guardhouse, kayak pavilion, restrooms, fishing dock, and multiple shelters are proposed. A multi-use trail, playground, disc golf course, bicycle skills course, dog park, and a community garden are all proposed. Proposed building materials include a standing seam metal roof, Ipe wood screening, smooth face CMU, aluminum storefront window systems in bronze and fiber cement siding. I know some people had some questions about why it needed to be here. It is zoned public land, and DRB approval for the design of the buildings is still required. So
We appreciate your input.
Press microphone. Microphone.
Okay, my name is Warren Pruitt. I'm a landscape architect, ADC Engineering. With me is Steve Wells with Clancy Wells Architecture. And so Pine Trace is, we're calling it an eco part. The actual name is Pine Trace Natural Area. And it's 300 acres of forest. And there's about, of that 300 acres, there's about 180 acres of protected wetland and upland that was an agreement with Corps of Engineers to enable filling on some of the wetlands to enable access into the property. There's also a 6-acre lake that was a former sewer lagoon for the coastal center that was decommissioned 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. What we're looking at is access off of the road to Chandler Creek Road, which is right there at Sires. I don't know if you've got the, you put the site plan up, probably be best. We are trying to minimize tree removal, but anything we do is going to remove trees because it's a high canopy oak hickory climax forest with beech trees in some areas. So everything we do is going to take trees out. We're trying to minimize that as much as possible. And we have already made application to the tree board and flagged, photographed, and graded all historic trees that we're looking to remove. So I've had contact with them and we're going to take them through the site sometime in the next week or so. So this park will be open dusk to dawn. It's going to center around Welcome Center on the entrance and then amenities around that 6-acre lake. There'll be 5 shelters that are, you might go down. Well, we'll start here. Well, that'll be good. That'd be good. This is the Welcome Center. There's a guardhouse to the right. The park will be closed at night. And then there's a Welcome Center, which will house some storage for park equipment and also park offices, men's and women's bathroom, and a automated dog wash for the dog park that's across the wetlands on the other side. There'll be a large and small dog park. Those will not be cleared of any grand trees. We are going to remove some smaller trees and establish a turf area for the dogs. And then all roadways will be asphalt. The travel ways and the parking areas will be asphalt, and then the parking spaces will actually be gravel, a permeable gravel. So if we go to the next slide, so this is the parking area at the pond. There is a large berm that's between the parking area and the pond. It was a spoil area, I think, for a large ditch that's right below this and probably some of the lake. So we're trying to preserve that berm as much as possible, but we've got to get through it in order to get ADA access back to the pond. So, and then the next slide, please. So here you can see there's 3 shelters on the left, and then above the 3 shelters, there is a kayak pavilion, which will be kayak rentals and instruction along with a kayak launch. And then the fishing dock down below that. The shelters all associate with kayak and the fishing areas. And then there's 2 other shelters on the north end of the pond and a restroom building. Okay, so I think we missed we probably skipped the photographs. The photographs would probably be helpful for these folks. There you go. So you can see in the upper left photo and the upper right photo it's very
cleared out underneath. It's a very high canopy and there's very little undergrowth. I mean, you can walk through it without any problem. So we've got almost 6 miles of blazed trails through this site. And then the lake at the bottom left and on the right. And my understanding is there's been some pretty big fish taken out, but don't know. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Steve and let him talk about the buildings.
Okay. Thanks. So basically we have 4 structures in the park, one being the guardhouse, first one you see, then the welcome center, as Warren described, a restroom facility, and the kayak rental facility. Here you see the welcome center. And again, all the structures use the same vocabulary, trying to keep the colors compatible with the natural surroundings. So all the buildings will be a concrete block. All the occupied areas will have a EPA rain screen on them. And whereas you transition to the restrooms, there'll be more of an exposed block. The shed roofs will allow ventilation flowing constantly through their lattice work. And the dog park on the right side would be another open lattice area to allow for air and drying of that area. In the guardhouse, you want to flip that. The back structure is just the storage structure that was the exposed block. Again, with a green roof to match the rest of the structures on the park.
Then the front is actually cementitious side.
The gable for the storage building is cementitious siding. The EPA is a rain screen that you see over the concrete block. Next building. The guardhouse again reflects that vocabulary. A block structure, but you'll be clad in the EPA, and then above that is fiber cement, more of an open joint system on the upper portion.
So why did you use the materials that you used?
The concrete block for durability, EPA for durability, and blend it with nature. Metal roof for durability. Very low maintenance structures. And the kayak building is similar, and again, similar materials, except for the occupied areas up front, whereas the back is open lattice work to secure the kayak storage and allow some airflow so they can dry out every night.
So what?
A large gate that would open that would actually create also a side to that wall.
Somerville is arguably known for black roofs on its residential buildings. That's somewhat unique to Somerville compared to the other kind of low country towns. Can you explain why you chose a green roof? Do you think it's appropriate? Obviously you do, but why would you go with a green roof versus a black roof? And on the renderings, it appears to be really bright. Is it really going to be this bright?
It will bring a sample this time. No, it's not a bright green, more probably a hunter green. But again, this color. But we also don't want to get so dark that it's like heat trap. So we're trying to be somewhat cool. But again, the green would relate to the canopy of the trees, whereas down below is more the wood look for the welcome center and the lattice work. The green would reflect more of a tree canopy.
All right, thank you. Just to read the other architect's comments. Pretty simple here. It says looks too much like an interstate highway visitor center.
I have to agree with you.
I mean, I'd be honest with you, I agree as well.
For building or?
Yeah.
Yeah, building.
I think.
No, the main building.
This is, he wrote it on this one. Oh, and yeah, he says it on all of them, actually. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree.
It may be a victim of that roof color, because it's kind of it's a lot of visitor centers have green roofs. It just might be dated a little bit to kind of fall into that. I mean, I like the e-pay and the use of the e-pay and mix of materials. I think that the roof probably makes this building look like something that you don't necessarily want it to look like. I mean, I know you don't want it to look like a visitor center or interstate rest stop.
Well, the concrete block doesn't help. That's about the worst material appearance wise you can go with.
I think also you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because I think the architectural precedent set at Ashley River Park, those buildings look great. You know, they
The client was also very specific on not playing.
Right. Sorry. I get it, but yeah, exactly. But you know, that's yeah, but that's a challenge. I'll just say it that way. And I agree with Bill. The concrete block is it kind of makes it look like it's a little bit dated, and that's I think what makes it kind of look like the visitors center. I don't really have a suggestion on how you get over that or get through that or whatever, but I think that's probably holding you back a little bit. So I know that's not super helpful, but
maybe don't use as much of the concrete block, but maybe just use it as your base and then add your wood look material above that. That might help. And definitely the roof. I know Chris talked about Somerville as historically a black roof, but how about just a real dark green, you know, and still get the tree look, you know, a little bit. I agree, too much concrete block. Although I know the natural feeling you're trying to give, and the low maintenance you're trying to get.
I think this maybe a simple way for us to say it is restudy the concrete block. That's
a good idea.
How does the committee feel about concrete block in areas inside the site and then the welcome center have more of the rest of it here?
Maybe, and that's a great idea, and we've actually done that on lots of other projects in the past. Is like that first impression. If you're kind of going for that kind of a cottage look in a way, you know, make sure you get make sure it really reflects the Somerville vernacular on that first building you see, and then the rest of them, not that you just yeah, it's yeah, it make right. Yeah. I do too. Yeah. And you know, if you're trying to keep in budget, and y'all know this, I'll say it anyway, it's like I like an approach of don't try to save money everywhere. Try to be judicious with taxpayer dollar, but make that first thing really good. And then if you need to save money elsewhere, you can, but don't just try to say, all right, by golly, we got to save 10% across this whole project. Then the whole thing kind of looks cheap, you know. There's better language for that, but just maybe a lot of emphasis on that first building.
Yep.
All right. And I know you're going to do this, but the rendering also shows the rendering, I think actually is not helping you either because it doesn't show any landscaping around it, which makes it kind of look like a interstate rest stop in a way. But if you make it, just go ahead and start thinking about that and how you can address that in the rendering so it does look like you're walking through and into a park rather than just driving up to something.
And Chris, we're probably not going to do an awful lot of effort towards landscaping here because there's the trees are magnificent.
Yeah.
And so we really want to try and just have grass wherever we have landscaping, the trees speak to the landscape. And we've got an awful lot of deer.
Yeah, true.
Eat all the landscaping.
Probably native material. Gonna be all we
Yeah, minimal plant palette. I'm all for it. Yep. Okay, any other comments? Right, like I said, it's just conceptual. I think y'all are on track, so thank you so much. Good to see both of you. Take care. All right, next is Droz Road, also asking for conceptual review. It's a 70 townhome community on 7.25 acres.
The second item under new business is a request for conceptual review for a new 70 townhouse development. Property is zoned NR Neighborhood Residential. This is located on the south side of Droz Road, behind the Food Lion on Central Avenue. This is their first meeting. Tree removal permit and tree protection board approval are required. Landscape plan is required. 70 townhomes on 7.3 acres. This is spread across 15 buildings with 4 or 5 unit count configurations. The amenity center and pool are also included. Units are rear access, alley fed with 1-car garages, 6-foot depth front porches, which meets UDO Chapter 4 requirement. Amenity center details have not been fully provided. The side elevations of the proposed buildings do have windows. Proposed shutters appear to meet operable width requirement, and horizontal and board and batten siding. Roofing materials include architectural shingles and standing seam on porch roofs. Applicant is here, and I can turn it over to Jeffrey.
Well, thank you, Tim. Jeff Roberts from JJR Development, my colleague Patrick Head, and one of the principal team architects on the project, Justin Ducey, who I'm gonna do my best. I can put him actually right here if you want. We improvise. I'd like to thank the board for the presentation, working on this project for a while. And we pride ourselves on sweating details. The 7-acre site, very well located on a short lane. It is a for sale product, not the typical rental product. So we're able to use fine materials. We think our project package will explain as we go through the slides. Really in the spirit of the UDO, creating a community with a sense of place, walkability, porches. The project is right size at 70 units, so it's not really actually for friends. And really gives it a sense of place and community and circulation and green space, rear entry garages, and again, fully sanitized. We think a project like this really satisfies the missing middle of ownership. Not quite entry level, but a definite missing middle. We think this type of ownership product is very well district and the town. So from that, my director of development has to go to the slide and be ready for comments. And it seems that we have cleared the room of something to say.
Your haircut,
yeah. Not much left. It's hereditary.
Good evening. Again, my name is Patrick Head, the development team. I will try to be brief. I know it's late. And I prepared a little statement so that I can get through it quickly. Okay, as Jeff mentioned, the project is located near the intersection of Parsons Road and Central Avenue on a short road named Droz. It's located directly behind the Food Lion and the Central Commons townhouses. Little community there. Property is zoned NR and it's part of mixed use district in the town's UDO. Project will provide 70 new missing middle high quality townhomes. Currently planned as an ownership project with an amenity center on 7 acres. 70 units are provided in a mix of 4 and 5 unit buildings with a total of 15 buildings. Each townhome is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with sizes between 1530 to 1570 square feet heated. And if you just want to clip through these photos, just sort of the site as it stands now, it was basically a farm a long time ago. It's got a bunch of loblolly pines that have grown up. And All right, so you can stay there on the site plan. The development has been carefully planned and designed to provide unique Somerville small town charm that we all love. The layout of the community was intentionally organized around a large central open space with amenity center for the new residents to enjoy, along with several smaller scaled open areas that allow for more intimate gathering space. Carefully following the UDO, all the new homes will face onto open space or onto the main public street, and walkable sidewalks and paths will knit the entire plan, creating a sense of community. If you scroll down to go through the engineering plans, get us to the colored elevation. All right, there you go. The residents themselves are designed with low country charm in mind, taking cues and precedent from other existing projects in Somerville and surrounds. In planning the exterior of the buildings, it was very important to us that each unit feels like an individual home with its own character, while still fitting in harmoniously with its neighbors. The architectural and development team has put considerable effort into organizing the facades with gable roofs, front porches, and siding texture to distinguish each residence one from the next, while still creating a beautiful and well-balanced composition, harmoniously consistent with the architecture of Somerville. The southern style front porches are 6 feet deep and range from 15 to 18 feet wide, offering ample room for residents to gather with neighbors. Well-proportioned windows and carefully planned exterior details help to define the proportions of each unit.
And the roof is black.
Roof is black. We're planning to use high quality materials, including cementitious siding and trim with a mix of board and batten and lap siding with the same level of materials extending to all sides of each building. Proposed color palette utilizes a total of 6 colors, including white trim. While this is more than UDO suggested before, per building, we want to make sure each unit reads as an individual home, and the color will be important to this. The colors are not final, but as you can see, we are aiming to keep them all complementary and harmonious with no bright or bold colors. This can be more exquisitely refined and detailed in our preliminary submission. We believe this project will surpass the existing standards set forth by town's UDO by encouraging walking and biking within the neighborhood, utilizing materials and details that deliver a high level of architectural design, and by creating a new neighborhood that enhances Somerville's unique aesthetic character. And then lastly, I just wanted to have a little note about trees. While we have not submitted to the tree board yet, we've had arborist Mike Russell and his team from Natural Directions review the trees on site and provide a report. And additionally, we walked the entire site and reviewed the trees with town arborist Bill Salisbury. And in our on-site review with Bill, we found very few quality trees in good health. There's a lot of the trees are either new loblollies or diseased, not doing well. They don't need to be preserved. So the current site plan reflects the discussion we had with him and adopted his requests, including buffering some of the larger oaks that are around the perimeter, not necessarily on our site, but at that perimeter. And we also preserved a few select oak trees that are in good health that are in this. And I can point them out the site plan, but
developed around.
yeah, developed around them. So they are all in there.
Did you have the clubhouse in here too?
Yeah, if you go back to the, there's not a clubhouse design yet, but if you go to the site plan, and that one will do probably. You can see it there. That's the drainage. That's the drainage plan. Yeah, that in the center there, there's a clubhouse. The elevation.
You don't have any elevation.
Yeah, we haven't designed the clubhouse yet, so that will definitely be in the next preliminary submission.
It'll be a modest clubhouse using similar type of materials, low country design, very proportional, very sympathetic to this.
Imagine we talked about a front porch and kind of just fitting in with the neighborhood.
Tim, do the perimeter buffers meet the UDO? I mean, they just look very small.
Yeah, generally they should, because this is neighborhood residential to commercial and other neighborhood residential. So it's minimal at best.
We've been through a first TRC meeting. I believe we met all the buffer requirements.
All right, well, this is just open for conversation. Remember, they're asking for conceptual, so the more comments, the better.
Patrick, I just have a question. The internal roads your garage is open to all of those. And the front of the building, all the fronts open to green space. Is that
So
trying to,
correct, there is a few buildings that face onto the road, onto one of the internal roads. But for the most part, the internal road is treated more like a lane that goes around the development, facing all those front porches into that big open park. The buildings at Giroux Road up the very front, those face into Giroux Road. So as you approach from Giroux Road, you'll see front porches.
the ones, they face Stroh's Road?
Correct. And
But
then
then
as
the
you
back
enter
is-
into the site, that internal road that goes around the perimeter is sort of the back lane serving those units.
Are those,
Thank you.
are those garages off the alley?
Yes, garage are off the alley. If you go to the, I think the civil drawing, civil site plan, if you go down like 5 sheets, has floor plans on the sites. Yeah. Excellent. There you go. So you can see the houses all face into the green space, except for the ones on Giroux Road.
So-
And then there's like a single car garage
Are
per
you,
unit facing into the alley with another parking pad next to it.
got it. So are you gonna have the cars? Explain how the cars will or will not, if they're not in the garage, they're gonna be blocking the sidewalk, right? Or is it not enough room where no one would really park there? Does that make sense?
Is there parking?
Well, it shows the sidewalk.
I'm not sure I'm following.
Okay,
You mean is the driveway, the depth of the driveway enough to support the car?
correct.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so next to the garage is a driveway.
This is side driveway.
Oh, to the right.
Yeah, either right or left, depending on the unit.
Okay, I was looking at the,
Yeah.
This.
The landscape plan is really a conceptual sketch plan at this level. They
I
haven't
got you.
started to detail that, so.
So there's the distance between the back of the garage and the edge of asphalt is maybe around 5 feet.
Yeah.
So you are intending no one to park behind it. Right? Coming out of the garage, no, behind the garage or in front of the garage.
No one can park in front. Yeah.
Right.
In or next.
And then, I would, okay, well, that makes sense now, because one of the
Now-
comments I was gonna say was, why is the parallel parking on the south side of the road? I'm looking at the most portion. But if you parked on the north side, you'd be blocked in.
Blocking the
Correct.
driveway.
So when you drive around the perimeter, all you're seeing is garage doors. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
The
an
back of the
alleyway.
units.
It's an alleyway and we adopted to do these rear entry garages to create a sense of circulation in place. And specifically, we're just not big fans of front load garages on this type of product because we don't believe it presents.
Agreed.
Nicely.
Agreed, yeah.
Mhm.
One, open other. Open the other comments, but one other immediate thought I had is, first, the question is, how deep are the front porches?
6 feet.
6 feet is, to me, too shallow because it's not really usable. It's good enough for a couple of chairs, but typically downtown Somerville, the porches, and Bill, you probably know this better than anybody, but porches are at least 8 feet, if not 10, and that gives you room to really enjoy your porch. If that's, we're kind of selling this as a low country thing, then the porches need to be deeper. And one of the most successful townhomes I've seen around is Daniel's Orchard, which is not far from here on 78.
Yeah.
And they have, on these end units would be side porches. So you have a porch that goes down especially at that front entry or the entry road, you have a porch that goes down the side and then connects to the front. That makes it much more usable. And it looks a lot better as well.
Can I ask, generally, what are the size of the units? Are they,
They're about 15, 30.
so they're minimal,
Yeah.
nice, medium? Okay.
Yeah, this is-
We're not doing any
You're-
2-bedroom units or anything else. We think that we get a good homogeneous mix of couples and families and things of that nature. So clearly, we didn't want to go for really 2 bedrooms here.
Okay, I was just trying to think how many people will be in the house and, you know, that, yeah.
First house.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Let me read Greg's comments. He says this road, and he's talking really about the internal road, of course. It says this road is anti-pedestrian. No trees, no sidewalk, just garage doors and asphalt. It's a pretty valid point, really, but I do view it as an alley. As far as elevations go, he says very nice drawing and should be a nice project. Wondering if all buildings will be the same color scheme, which may be too much of a good thing.
It's great colors.
Insofar as colors, we're going for sort of elegant simplicity and harmonious, and we can sort of get to those color choices. Architect, but will be very pleasing, no loud colors, really conforming to the UBO. And you'll start to see renderings, really some good high quality renderings in the next submission.
Okay.
I hear his point, and I think once we see them in the renderings, we'll know what's too much. But
I think that I appreciate that. I think moving forward, I'm going to push for those side porches. Just go and tell you that now, at least on the main entry as you come in, because and I encourage you to go to Daniel's Orchard.
I know exactly what we're looking.
Okay. Yeah, if you just walk down that sidewalk, it's great because the porches are sitting right there. You know, so I don't think they have to be everywhere. If you want to have a lot more, that's fine, but at least on that main entry. And consider I think staff will say this as it moves forward, but your verge on your entry road between the back of curb and the sidewalk looks like it's 3 or 5 feet. For canopy trees, I think they're probably going to want 8. You know, between that curb and sidewalk, so you may need to increase that verge or keep it narrow 3 feet, but put the canopy trees on the lot side. In other words, on the outside of the sidewalk instead of the inside of the sidewalk.
What is your approach to the pond? Is it just kind of, you're trying to keep people away from it or let it be part of the design of the?
As we get more into the landscaping plan, we have outdoor spatial design to work with us on a considerable number of projects.
Okay.
And actually the one we're doing in downtown Somerville on South Cedar Street. So we're viewing the pond as not just a pond, but certainly functioning as a pond, but an amenity which will be sort of a sense of place with benches and
Okay.
walk around.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could we, Tim, can we go to the rendered landscape or site plan? I just have one comment on it, based on that. So on the right side by the pond, is that like a little turnaround area?
yes, it's the fire truck, hammerhead.
Okay, so is that whole length required for a fire truck or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that is a bummer.
Yeah.
But I'd just say let's find a way to connect the pond with that other area down there that you've got.
What does it have to be a hammerhead or can you just connect to Droz Road at the kind of northern end of the fire lane?
That would be a little more challenging due to the county. They're adding another access maybe challenging.
Respectfully, working with town engineers or traffic engineer Jennifer Beal on this particular project. And I'm going to leave our interactions with the county alone, which have been special.
Yeah.
This is.
You're good. Say more.
We understand.
This is an optimized ingress and egress. We initially explored doing 2, but it doesn't work as well. And we think the wraparound porch that you said is a good idea as a focal point, as an object.
Fair enough.
That's interesting. And the architectural team, development team will certainly study that and take that part. But we view this pond, when we get sort of done working with our civil, get the exact size of it, and this is certainly pretty close. We'll definitely open the experience around it. We wouldn't let it, we would make this into an asset, not only for its detention, but a neighborhood gathering.
Generally, I think you're doing the right approach. It's a good job. I think you probably heard us earlier on the clubhouse. Make sure it is really well done. As far as the massing and the detailing, that doesn't equate to necessarily expensive. There's very simple houses around the historic district that aren't expensive, but the proportions are perfect. I think you can achieve that. It sounds like you're willing to do that, but just make sure you get that down.
Well, for some comfort, we are more than willing to do that and view that as a major asset. And this is a for sale product, so we use the vernacular, we're not going to cheap out. Let's get that in the center. It is the main selling point for the project and what will really create a sense of communities, people gathering there, and there's a pool next to it. So it's going to look pretty sharp, but it will be smartly proportioned.
What's across the Rose Road? The Summit subdivision? Summit's across the road. It's the back of the site. So you go see the privacy fences in the back
That's all
of
there is.
houses. Yeah,
Basically,
that's what's along the road. Yeah.
there's a wooden fence and
I think it's architecturally, it's a great start. I actually kind of appreciate the simplicity of it. I mean, we get not a lot of townhomes, I guess, but these 5 units, 4, 5, 6 units, and oftentimes they're either super bland or really overdone. I think it's a great start.
All right, any other comments from the board? Do you have any questions or need direction? Feel like you got enough to kind of move forward?
I think so, unless there's anything else, I appreciate the good reception. This team does sweat the detail. You don't rush things through. The architectural team is great, and we're working with them on multiple projects, and everyone involved on the entire team, from civil engineers to the architectural team, landscape architects, just works hand in glove together. So it's not an ad hoc.
Awesome. Well, it's a good approach to sweat the details early rather than fight back towards them later. It's just
That's not how we work.
awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Any other comments?
We're good.
I think that's
Well,
it.
thank you for spending the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
enjoy your dinners.
And he doesn't go into the. Justin Busey, the architect, right? He was. It's a good way to. Thanks, Justin.
Good. Thanks, guys. All right.
Good night.
Take care.
Everybody.
Thank you. Tim, you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right, just
Make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second? I'll vote by leaving. Thanks.
Are we free?